Welcome to the Inner Huddle, the podcast for parents and coaches to help children fulfill their potential both on and off the pitch.
Welcome along to the Inner Huddle Series 3, Episode 5. I'm Pez, he's Geoff, and together we are Pez and Geoff. The Inner Huddle Series 3, Episode 5, halfway through the series, the new series, Jeffrey. How are you doing, mate?
Yeah, I'm alright, thank you, Pez. How are you?
Good. That was very upbeat, wasn't it?
Yeah. Well, you must be looking forward to a bit of a break over Easter.
Bit of a break over Easter, mate, and then into 2 weeks of holiday camps, which will be quite challenging as always, but we absolutely love it. And rarely I'm getting to work with you for 2 weeks.
Almost 2 weeks.
Almost 2 weeks, yeah, because you keep dropping in days you can't do. But, you know, we adapt and overcome.
Pivot.
I like that. Just always reminds me of Friends, but we won't go there. Right, so, usual format, Jeffrey.
Usual format, Pez.
There's been no Wessex games and not a lot else going on, other than I did go to the Anfield Liverpool Legends Ajax game. Steven Gerrard, unbelievable by the way, second half.
Still got it, is he?
Oh, when he decided to drop off and get the ball and start pinging 40, 50 yard diags, unbelievable.
I haven't caught up with you and I haven't seen any of the footage, but did he link up with Fernando Torres?
Yes.
That I read somewhere.
Yeah, so Torres played and it was lovely to see Sven-Göran Eriksson lead the team out. So yeah, emotional day, really good fun. Took my lad and so I was away at the weekend. Wessex had no game. So did you put your feet up?
Yeah, I did. I watched 8 hours of futsal because the other 8 teams in the National Futsal Series
You watched
Tier 1.
every game?
I watched every game, every minute of every game. Probably.
Geoff, you are a future England manager.
No.
Manager. You are, surely.
I'm
putting it out there. If
I'm a
anyone's
fan.
listening, then you're the man.
No, there's
next England manager.
There's levels to everything, Pez, and I know my level, and I'm very happy with where I'm at.
Well, how many teams are in the top flight, Geoff?
9.
10
next season.
10 next season. How many of those have English managers? Not that you can't have a foreign manager to manage England, but 50%?
I think I might be one of 4 at the moment, or maybe 5 actually. It's
One
gone
of
up
5.
a lot recently, this past couple of years.
So, in my, I don't know, in my opinion, 1 in 5 gives you 1 in 5 chance, really.
Oh no, 6.
Maybe
It's
6.
definitely going up, because it used to be I would be pretty much the only one.
Yes.
In the Super League.
Who knows? Who knows what the future holds, Jeffrey? But you get my vote.
I know what the future holds. But thank you, Pez.
That's okay. Right, shall we crack on?
Yeah,
We've got
let's do
a
it.
few questions in front of us, and we've got the book as well, Did You Win, Did You Score? Which is my book, How to Help Your Child Succeed at Football and Life, and it is the sponsor of this series. So buy it. Available on Amazon.
If you want to keep listening to this series.
Yeah, because we put all this out for free, so if you want more help, more advice, it is jam-packed. It's a very thick book, but it's written more like 150 separate blogs where you go through the list and find what's appealing to you, and then read those ones. You don't have to read it cover to cover, although some have, believe it or not, Geoff. You're not one of them, but some have.
No, I tend to pick it up and be interested in one chapter and then get sucked into 3 or 4 when I read it. So I've probably got through quite a lot of it, Pez, just not front to back.
Even I use it as a reference book. So if someone asks me for a bit of advice, I think, I've written a chapter on that, and I'll find it, and then I'll refresh my memory on what I said then.
And it's good because you spent a lot of time writing it, so you've nailed your answers when you go back to and refer to. But
although things change, and some of it can be adapted, but it's all relevant. Cool. Right. Do you want to ask question number 1?
yes, please.
Okay.
Does shouting out from the sidelines really ever achieve anything positive?
Well, it depends what you're shouting, I suppose. I presume this one is about parents shouting out rather than coaches. And I've been looking at social media groups recently, sort of grassroots stuff, and this topic comes up quite a lot. And looking at some of the responses on there, it's crazy the differing opinions that are about. I'm just going to move this microphone a bit there, Geoff, so you can get it. There we are. Thoughts?
I was going to say it's one of my pet hates, but it's a lot stronger feeling than a pet hate, I think. I remember being a youth football player, playing at under 11s and younger than that, and lots of parents shouting out from the sidelines. Almost, even then, I think I knew it was almost like an ego thing to show that they had some knowledge of football. They thought they played at a higher level or knew more about the game than the other parents on the sideline. And I don't think I've ever really wavered from that feeling that it's more of a parent's ego than it is about actually supporting and nurturing and creating a good environment.
I think there's lots of different reasons. And yeah, I think ego can be some of it. Some of it, I think parents are just expected. They just think it's expected of them to shout out because everyone else is doing it. Some of them get competitive and think, well, they're shouting, I need to shout louder and show that I know what I'm on about, and that my child knows that I'm supporting as much as his mate's dad is, or mum, because they're equally as guilty of shouting out instructions. Now, if it's praise and encouragement, all for it. It creates a great atmosphere, and kids enjoy it, and you can praise and encourage all the children, not just your own. Instructions is really dodgy area because you don't know what the game plan from the coaches, and you know, they might be wanting to try playing out from the back, and you've got a dad saying, get rid of it, hoof it forward, you know, run with it, whatever it might be. They might be trying to encourage moving the ball quickly, 2 and 3 touch, and someone's shouting dribble with it, take him on. You know, it's conflicting instructions. I did read one response where the coach was like, you'll never stop it, so control the controllable, just go with it. And I would never stop a parent shouting at their own kid, only if they were shouting at someone else's. Said, I've got no right to tell my parents how they should, or what they should be doing with their kids. And I was kind of like, really? Wow, okay. But you have to take sort of every single opinion on board, don't you? And then try and come up with an open mind and think. And I guess if that works for them, that's fine. But I can only talk about my experience. And, you know, there's a chapter in the book, but myself and Charlie and his dad the other weekend had a good laugh over when I went over to watch him play in Holland, about communication, about how we fell out because he was shouting out from the sidelines with conflicting information and what I'd given him. And communication is probably key, wouldn't you have thought?
Yeah, I'm sure we've covered this in previous podcasts, and I remember talking about, was it Homer Simpson playing the piano and somebody cracking a whip as if that was going to make him a world-class piano player.
Yeah, it does no harm to go over it again because this seems to come up a lot.
So does it ever achieve anything positive? There might be one or two people that can turn around and say, I thrived when I was playing youth football and when people were giving it some from the sideline and a bit of needle was going on, and that's when I really stepped up and reached my optimum state of arousal to play the game and really pushed me on. And I'm sure there'll be stories out there that can back up both sides of an argument,
as usual. And then people don't normally budge from their own opinion, though, and that's when arguments happen rather than debate. So I don't know, I think look at how it's impacting your team and your child and your players. I mean, I've heard things where people say, well, we all pay the same amount of money, we pay our subs, we've got every right to shout out and do what we want. I saw an argument that, well, if they're going to be pros, which is a long way off, then they've got to get used to dealing with people shouting out things. But again, this could be under 16s or it could be under 7s.
Yeah.
So I think certainly with the younger age groups, let them play. And there is a great question coming up if we get to it, about a coach who doesn't like shouting instructions. So
yeah,
and touch on it again a bit more. Can we just move your microphone a bit more this way, Geoff, so I can stare into your beautiful eyes? You're looking this way. There we are.
I'm tempted to move it back further the other way then. Yeah, it's an interesting one, and maybe if you're in a controlled environment and you could trial it and then ask the players what they've enjoyed more. So you could create training sessions where parents come in and scream and shout and clap and do as much as they want, and then maybe have a silent one, and then maybe something in between that's only praise, and get their feedback on what they enjoyed the most. And that could be different across all your players. It could be very similar, and then you could find some common ground that you can actually show evidence to the parents that this is what your kids prefer doing in this environment, so that's going to benefit them the most. So
I actually think it's a lack of respect to the coach. The coach, when we're talking predominantly about volunteer coaches who give up their time to train a group, take matches, get there early, all weathers, put nets up, and they study session plans and goodness knows what, and they put a plan together and they're working on things and they're trying to develop these kids, and they might work on something at training, and then come match day you have a mum or dad shouting at their kid to do something that you haven't asked them to do. I personally, when it was me, I found it really disrespectful. I was, well, where are you at training? If you're so clever, well, why don't you come and talk to me or come and give me a hand? Take training with me. And you think, I wouldn't turn up at your work. I know it's not work if it's voluntary, but
almost a bit like a heckler at a comedy club, isn't it? It's when they turn around and say, "Go on then, tell us a joke or something," and they go quiet.
Yeah,
it'd be an interesting one to, and it might actually stop some of it as well if you put it back on.
I think the key to it is, if you are a coach or a manager and you don't like it, you need to tell the parents and explain why, and explain it intelligently and unconfrontationally, if that's the right word, the reasons why. And again, if they want to shout and bawl at their child, then maybe they should be at a different club where they don't mind that. Everyone's got a choice, haven't they? But if you're giving up your time, things should be done your way, open to advice and stuff like that, and people wanting to help you out. But ultimately, they're the leader, and I don't think it's a good example if there's an adult as a leader and that adult is getting disrespected openly in front of their children, because they'll pick up on it. And I know there's been children, and it happens in a lot of teams, where the parents tell them to ignore the coach. Just ignore it. Get forward every chance you get. Don't listen to them. Do this, like they know better. And even if they were a pro player, they still don't know what the manager's trying to achieve. And interestingly, I think I said this before, pro players tend to just let their kids get on with it and trust the coach.
Yeah, we've definitely talked about the picture of Messi and Suarez at La Masia in Barcelona, not even really just having a chat amongst themselves, and I think bare feet up on the fence.
Oh, when they're watching their own children.
Laid back, yeah. Not definitely not given any information on how they thought their kids should be coached, that's for sure.
Yeah, I've seen kids freeze because I've asked them to do something and then their parents tell them to do something else, and they don't want to go against a coach, but they daren't go against mum or dad. And so they get caught in two minds, and then the moment's gone and they freeze. I just think, as a rule, if you can help it, catch yourself in the moment if you're doing it, and just stick to praising and encouraging. And if you've got any issues with anything, that's not the time. But I think some people confuse themselves with being a fan, don't they? They think, I'm a fan of this team, I'm a fan of my child, I've got to act like a fan.
Yeah.
And yeah, you should be your child's biggest fan, biggest supporter, but in a positive way. And anything that affects decision making, in terms of their development, which is not even touched on, is really dodgy ground, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think it's why I prefer coaching in a futsal environment more than a football environment, because the game happens so quickly that you can't even scream out information, or the phase has happened and it's gone and the next phase is happening normally so quickly that the next phase is always the most important phase in a game of futsal, because you just don't have time to think about what's just happened.
You can't just do what I used to do and call players over during a match.
Well, you can, because you can do roll on roll off subs, can't you? But
yeah, I used to sort of, when a match was going on, just call someone over, and I used to get stick for that as well. Like, oh, we're a player down.
You could do that in futsal because it's roll on roll off subs, even when the ball's
so
in
you'd
play.
make a sub and then chat to the player.
So you could actually have a player receive it out wide, stop the ball, walk out the sub gate, have another player come on and carry on dribbling that ball that they've just stopped, whilst you have a chat with the player, and then do the same thing 30 seconds later once you've had your chat. So yeah, that's probably one of the main reasons why I enjoy the futsal environment so much. And there's not many players that can even instruct whilst they're playing, because you can't. When I was fit, I couldn't run around and talk to the people around me out of possession. I think I've only seen about 2 or 3 players playing at Tier 1 in England that talk their teammates through the game whilst they're on the court, because the tempo and the speed of the game is...
And you've got to keep concentrated, haven't
yeah,
you?
and you got... Yeah, otherwise
constantly.
You're not thinking about where your man is and what you're doing.
Like I say, we're going to touch a bit more if we get that far down on this as well, which is sort of a bit of a crossover. So I think we'll move on from that one. Should just say, though, these are only our opinions, and I think our job is to obviously give our 10 pennies worth through our years of experience, and just to open up people's minds to possibilities of what might happen or what might be happening, and then you can make up your own mind.
Yeah, the problem is we're quite like-minded and have the similar values and beliefs on how things should be done, so we don't always...
Should invite the old parent in, shouldn't we?
We don't always argue the other side of the coin very well, do we?
I mean, there'll be people listening going, I always shout at my kid, does them no harm.
Yeah.
They play in the JPL.
I just tell it like it is. I tells it like it is.
And all of that kind of stuff. And it's done him no harm or her no harm, I get it. Yeah. And fair play to you. You crack on and you do you, but I think in general people need to know what the possible negatives are.
Do you sometimes wish that you were that blissfully ignorant to the things that you know sometimes, Pez?
Yeah.
It's nicer to be ignorant.
Yeah,
sometimes.
but I don't think even when I started I would have liked parents shouting out from the sideline, because I just think it's a lack of respect.
Yeah.
You know, it's not my way or highway type thing, but it's like, I'm giving up my time here. This is my beliefs, and you've trusted me with the job just by signing up. And okay, you might be a mum or dad that's doing it because no one else is doing it, and you want your kid and his friends to play football, which obviously happens quite a lot. But still, you're the one that's taken on the mantle, so it's your ideas.
So we're saying that trust the coach.
Yeah, and positive. If you're going to shout anything, make sure it is positive.
But just one more thing is, how many times have you heard people say, "Oh, I hardly ever got any words of praise, but when they did, it really meant something."
Mm-hmm.
So as a parent, if you want to be really impacting when you are giving praise, maybe if you just hold it back a little bit and don't clap every pass, and and then when there's been even after a loss or something, and you can say in the car, "Well done, you worked really hard today." That might mean more than,
I think so,
screaming and shouting for a whole season.
Which, some kids get really embarrassed by it as well.
Yeah, I would have been mortified.
Yeah,
I'd have been absolutely.
I'd have been, please be quiet.
Probably would have put me off playing, to be honest.
Yeah, I think it would have done me. If you're like, oh no, Mum, come on, you've never watched a game of football in your life, and you're telling me to clear it and get rid and pass. Please be quiet. Anyway,
come on then, let's move on.
Yeah, should we go on to the book?
So
you've got the numbers down from all the other episodes there in order.
Yeah,
well done. So hopefully we won't.
Smartest thing I've ever done, that, Pez. Right,
but one of them, yeah.
Randomise.
Go on. I'm on the trigger.
26, which we haven't had. We've had 25 and 29 pairs.
Right, okay. Chapter 26. Embrace and encourage rotation of players to play in different positions. And the opening quote's one of mine, Geoff. Who knew? And it is, you don't gain experience through time, but by the amount of variety you're exposed to. I've nicked that from somewhere, and I've not nicked it, but I've squished someone else's a little bit there and changed it slightly, I think, because there are a few similar quotes out there like that. But
proper
it's
coach,
got my name next to it.
Proper coach, that is,
Proper
Pez.
coach, yeah.
Borrowing stuff and tweaking it.
Yeah. Coaches are the biggest thieves or something, is it?
Yeah,
They used to say on the
like
level 1 years ago.
The best
So,
coaches,
You don't gain experience through time, but by the amount of variety you're exposed to, which obviously fits in very nice with this chapter. And it's embrace and encourage rotation of players to play in different positions. And the way I've written this is it can be for sort of coaches and managers. So if you're coaches and parents, so if you're a parent, because the book's predominantly for parents, embrace and encourage it if that's what your club ethos or your team are doing. And I'll read, it's a long one. I'll read a couple of the paragraphs. Playing in different positions is a very important part of your child's development. Please embrace it as it gives children different problems to face, different scenarios and different responsibilities, takes them out of their comfort zone and gives them a different perspective on the game. I saw an interview with former Premier League player Jermaine Genius recently, who talked about playing in different positions when he was younger. He even had a season in the reserves at Nottingham Forest as a central defender, which he's grateful for looking back now as he learned a lot about the game there. He later moved into central midfield and went on to win 21 caps for England. The professional game is littered with players who started off in one position and then went on to have a great career in another. The more position your child plays in, the more experience they will gain, and they will have a better understanding of the game as a whole. The idea of rotating players doesn't always sit well with some parents, in particular those who like their child to score goals, or dads, and I've put in brackets mainly dads but also some mums, who want their child to play in the same position as they did. There's a misconception that it's usually the forward players who get scouted professional teams and that there's no glory in playing in defence. And that, Geoff, is just the first 3 paragraphs out of 3 pages. And have I got any key takeaways? I've got one here. Find out if your child is playing in a certain position to help their development or simply to help the team win. So that is advice talking to your coach if you're not sure why your child's playing in a certain position. I had one, don't think you'll mind me saying, Ethan Coville, smallest lad in the team, used to play at the back for me because he was tremendous on the ball and we liked to play out from the back. No one could understand it because they thought the bigger, stronger players should have been at the back there and the ones who could kick it forward when they're in trouble the furthest to create long ball attacks. And I had to communicate with Ethan's parents and everyone's parents of why I was doing it. So if you're not sure why your child tends to play in a certain position, my lad used to play in defence and he used to hate it as he got a bit older. And I used to ask the question, and it turned out it was a compliment because they said he was the only one that they trusted to take the ball from the keeper to beat the press, basically, because they wanted to play out from the back. So it was a compliment to them. But they didn't know that. They thought they were playing there because they couldn't score goals or create them. So communication, as with so much, is key. Another takeaway here, remember the game is about the children and not you. No context behind that one. And then the finishing quote of this chapter is, I can play in 11 positions because a good player can play anywhere on the pitch. And that is by Zlatan Ibrahimovic. He's come out with some belters, isn't he?
Yeah, we like Zlatan, don't we?
Thoughts on that, Jeffrey? Are you a fan, or going to put you on the spot here? What sort of age do you think you have to start nailing down a position?
Well, I am no longer a football coach. I'm a futsal coach. So when I'm reading that, I'm thinking we might have set positions, but it changes so much in futsal. You've got to know every position inside out.
And be comfortable on the ball.
And be comfortable on the ball in all areas of the court. And in football, I think it's going the same way. So you'll see fullback coming inside and playing almost like a central midfielder sometimes now. And that was unheard of.
Stones and Trent Alexander-Arnold.
And centre-backs doing the same now, And it was unheard of 10 years ago, wasn't it? 20 years ago, it was 4-4-2 and everyone knew their positions, and even at the highest level.
Centre-half headed it and kicked it,
yeah.
headed it and kicked it away.
Yeah, they've obviously, you've done a bit too much heading there, Pez.
Yeah. It wasn't my position, but yeah. Fullbacks usually were players you didn't trust to play centre-half.
So with the way that game's going in football, I think you should definitely be trying out all positions, but maybe even coming away from positions completely and having a team structure that everyone understands and a philosophy that everyone understands, then that you can experiment within it and find yourself popping up in different places. And I've got here in front of me some of the England futsal DNA, and it's all around the positions. But what you'll notice when you actually read it is none of it is like physical or technical things. It's more mindset and how you're going to win your duels. So you could be a completely different fix, which is what you call a defender in futsal. But as long as, shall I read what? Controls the centre of the court. So you could be 6'4" and use your physical strength and maybe reading the game, or you could be, as what you were alluding to, the player that you played at the back. You could play it completely differently, where you go and mark in front and front screen the opposition pivot, as long as you control the centre of the court. So there'll be lots of,
depending on your attributes.
Yeah.
And
so you work out, right, this is what I've got in my locker. This is how I'm going to win my area of the court.
You should do that with football if they haven't already.
I'm sure it probably is transferred across from England football. My guess, it might not do. Stimulating opportunities to play forward. So there's just one example of one position, but you'd have similar types of things for goalkeepers, similar types of things for wingers, similar types of things for the pivot, which is the striker in futsal, not the holding midfielder as it is in football. And I much prefer that way at looking at things, rather than going like more traditional coaching in football would be, you're big, you're strong, you can kick it fine, you're a centre back.
Stereotypes.
Yeah, so you're actually kind of is stereotypes, but it's much more fluid in the way that you understand it. But also in futsal, if you are the fix and you are the back player, if you play a sideways pass and there's pressure on the ball, you're expected to cut through the middle, which is just run forward basically, to then maybe receive the ball with your back to goal, as you might do in central midfield in football, and be able to switch play, and basically you've got to be able to do everything. Maybe a bit more like a basketball player is expected to be able to defend every area of the court and attack it in certain ways.
Concentrate on helping the children or your child, or if you're a coach, the team. Make them all be good footballers first, before they find their formation, or their position,
and get exposure to different opposition styles and different highlights their weaknesses in different areas and work on those. And
how many times do you hear in live games where a defender is co-commentating and say, "Oh, that's what I used to hate when I played as a winger or a forward, running straight at me, and not knowing whether they're going inside or outside and at pace." And so you find that out. So if you're a winger having a stint in defence and thinking, "Oh, well, I hated it at this, so I'm going to do it to them," it just helps their overall development. I do agree, when they get sort of secondary school and stuff, they sort of naturally find a position that they prefer and they're comfortable with, and it kind of all takes care of itself a little bit.
Yeah, and I think you probably will then be ready to choose yourself. Or actually, I feel like I want to be a central midfielder, not a centre back, or Peter Cech deciding he's going to be a goalkeeper at 16 rather than wherever he played out on pitch.
I always imagine with this scenario, like a dad who maybe played up front themselves, and maybe their kids scored 2 goals the week before, and they're keeping a tally of it at home.
Yeah.
And their pep talk all the way is, get your shots away early today, son or daughter, whatever it might be, and give you a £5 a goal today, and if we win or we get man of the match, we'll go for McDonald's, all of those things. And then they tip up at a game and the coach is playing them at the back, and then the parent is deflated and hates it. I think that scenario, although embellished slightly, might happen quite a lot. And like I said in the chapter there, I think a lot of parents think that the kids that score the goals and make the goals and play further forward are the ones who are likely to get spotted if there's any scouts watching, and all the glories in goals and the Facebook posts in goals. And actually there's a serious lack of defenders now, because social media is full of forward-thinking flip-flaps and tricks and how to beat players, and I think the art of defending, it's going out of the window a little bit.
Yeah.
And no one grows up wanting to be Gary Neville, do they? As someone famously once said.
Yeah, and it's not just the art of defending, is it? It's the willingness to not get beat in a 1v1 duel, because you'll probably get more praise if you dive in and nick the ball and then set up a counter-attack or go on and score yourself, than if you spend 90 minutes or however long the games are at that youth phase just going, I'm not going to let you go past me today. And society's completely changed, hasn't it? So I think you're probably right, and some of it might be that there's no instant reward for spending a whole game being the hardest player to beat on the pitch, as well as going the other way. You get a lot more praise for that, don't you?
Yeah, again, going back to what I said earlier, communication is key. So if you are a manager or a coach that rotates players, make sure everyone's clear that that's what you do and what's going to happen, and maybe even give some players a heads up, and some parents that their child, even though they scored a hat-trick last week up front, is going to have a little stint at the back, and explain the reasons why. So good communication here could solve a lot of problems. But if you're a parent, encourage it. Realise it's part of the development process, even if you might not get a nice Facebook post. You could put on Facebook, if you have to, oh, so proud of my tiny Tina or tiny Tim today for playing in an unfamiliar position and doing really well. I don't know, whatever you feel you have to do, if you have to do it. But please do embrace it, because it is very important, in our opinion. Well, in my opinion, but I'm presuming you're similar.
Yeah, again, it's like we're not very good at arguing the other side of the coin. I'm sure somebody will say, well, Michael Owen played up front his whole youth career and scored 45 billion thousand goals, and then look what he
and it's an art form. And
yeah. And there'll be many stories like that out there, I'm sure, that might even be slightly misremembered, but
yeah,
who knows?
And I'm sure Owen probably did play up front all his life. Played in an era where not many people knew much difference, and was helping managers win games of football. So put him up front, scored 10 goals. Even if we concede 9, we've won the game. You know, it's a bit like, with another example of, I don't like parents paying their children for goals, but famous Roma and Italy player Totti, his dad and his granddad used to pay him for every goal that he scored, and you know, he went on to be a legend. So there are counter arguments to everything, but I think from what I've seen in the main is what I write about from my experience.
I didn't know that about Totti.
It's in the book, Geoff, if you've read it.
Well, I haven't read that chapter
You need
yet.
to read that chapter now.
But it's quite a strange the type of player he ended up being wasn't necessarily an out-and-out goal scorer.
He wasn't an out-and-out goal scorer. No, he was a classic number 10, wasn't he?
Yeah, more of an assist king, wasn't he?
Maybe he got a lesser amount for that.
Reminds me a bit of me, Pez.
Of course, that's. I was thinking that. It was crossing my mind. I didn't like to say it. I'm glad you did. Right, shall we move on to question number 2? And it's my turn to ask it. My son's team does not give a top scorer award, but every team at the club does. So I buy him the trophy myself with the club badge on and give it to him on the day of the presentation when he is top goal scorer. I don't see an issue with this. Now I have to say, Geoff, this one didn't come into us. I saw this on social media and I screenshotted it and sent it to you during the week. So, have you seen this? And I thought I've got to include it. And some of the comments and stuff on it were interesting, to say the least. But I thought, why don't we discuss that?
Go on, then. What did you think of some of the interesting comments then?
Well,
I haven't seen those. I just saw the screenshot.
You know, I can't go through them all because it frustrates me. But I had a little flip down to see what the general consensus. The general consensus was that, actually, surprisingly, that people weren't in favour of the top goal scorer award, which I am not. I'm going to throw it out there. It's in the book. I don't like top goal scorer award, especially at the young ages. It encourages kids to be selfish and greedy. But the flip side of that is, well, if they are the top goal scorer, they deserved it. They've worked hard. That's their special position. They might be training on their own. They might have a goal in the garden and been practicing, and I get it. So if you've got a child like that who their life's ambition is to be a goal scorer and they've done it, and with this one I think it's every other team in the club does it other than this one. So I do understand it, and if it was my child, I reckon it's tempting to, yeah, you know, they deserved it, and every other age group do it, and yeah, there you go, son, that's for all your hard work. But it never ceases to amaze me, and it happens all the time. You see people commenting and saying how much football's a team game, and even when it comes to learning some skills and encouraging players to take other players on, should be, oh no, you pass because it's all a team game and we win together, draw together, lose together. Yet everyone places so much importance on individual accolades and awards. It's really contradicting in my opinion. And clubman at presentation night is the one no one really wants to get, because it's like, or most improved. It's a bit like, oh, okay, clubman, you're really unselfish and team player, but that's what everyone says the game is, and yet on the night they want managers player, players player, and top goal scorer are the ones to win, which are the individual accolades. So yeah, I'm not particularly a fan, and when I ran my team I refused to do it. I believe, especially when you're rotating positions, it's not really fair. And then you get maybe 2 or 3 players that are fighting for goal scoring, and parents are then starting to put pressure on them to play further forward or ignore the coach, shoot, you know, play up front, and I just don't think it does any good. And I saw one comment that said, a parent was saying that there's other areas of the game which are equally as important, and you don't get trophies for, you know,
the most saves, the most tackles,
most
headers won,
most assists.
Yeah.
I mean, I think assists might be a much better one to do if you could, but it would be a nightmare for someone to actually count assists, and there's a slight grey area with some of it anyway. I suppose if you're getting your games filmed with VO camera, what is it, VO?
Yeah.
Then maybe you could go back and do it, but it's just pointless. Just, you're a team, and it's about outcomes and processes really. Scoring a goal is just the outcome. The process might be a good tackle and a good assist and a great cross, and a well executed finish. That's a whole thing. It's not just the bit at the end. There'll be people screaming now going, but it's the hardest thing to do in football and it's the aim of the game, and if someone's better at it than anyone else, and I get it, it's personal opinion, I don't like it, and I think it can do more harm to a team and an individual than good. sort of hogged that answer. Sorry, Geoff.
No, I feel exactly the same as you, and I just trying to think what do awards nights look like generally. You might give out top goal scorer second to last. Most people's experiences. You might even give out clubman last because he's the one you've placed the least value on, and you've just done the one that everyone always bigs up is player's player, and the one that really matters the most because your peers have voted for you. And I do agree to that to some extent, but I think that big chat should go. Actually, we need to raise the profile of that clubman award, and maybe call it something other than clubman, and change the stigma around it, because that should be the one where you go, this is the player that's going to end up reaching their potential because they're doing all these things right, and it should be the one that everyone gets a standing ovation for. The clubman should be the hero. It should be the hero award, shouldn't it?
It was something like the sportsmanship award I used to do, but it wasn't sportsmanship because that term became
shaking hands at the end of a game, win, lose or draw.
Yeah, it's sportsmanship and sportswomanship and all that's a grey area. So it wasn't sportsmanship, but it was something like that I used to do instead of clubman. I mean, presentations for my lot, bless them, they used to get a trophy each to say thank you from me for giving up your time and coming to play as a team in snow and sleet and rain and all sorts. So everyone used to get something. And I wouldn't do manager's player because I didn't want anyone thinking I had favourites.
Yeah, I won't do that either.
And I didn't do top goal scorer for the reasons I've just said. But I did player's player because I thought that was important.
Just recently, our under 15s, 16s and 14s have been playing in what's now the National Youth Futsal Cup. And at those age groups, I have to write down every goal scorer. So before we play, I definitely did with the under 14s. I went to the parents and said, look, I absolutely hate keeping a tally of who scored, but I need to feed it back to the FA on their, might not be the FA now, it might just be the National Youth Cup holding page, so that they've got a tally of it, whether or not they're going to look at that over the coming years and go, I mean, it might be as crude as that, this player scored a lot of goals over the next few years, let's get him into the England under-19s futsal one day. I don't know, but just to have these stats on their record maybe. But I had to say to some of the parents that, can you try and remember who scored, because I'm so out of the habit of caring who scored the goal that I'm going to forget to do it. But and then I hate the fact that I'm there going, oh, who just scored, and then got a clipboard and trying to write down on a bit of pen and paper, like as if I've got any value attached to that, when really it's, like you say, it could be a team move that we've worked on playing into a certain area, and the reason that person scored is because the team have done everything right in the process, and we played into the area, and then we got someone edge of the box and back post and worked a certain style of goal that can only happen if the team are all doing the right things in unison and not just one player getting the ball, beating everybody and scoring.
Yeah, and if that top goal scorer has been the difference, they're quite likely to get player's player anyway, you would have thought, unless they've been one of those who just stands up there waiting for everyone to do all the work and then them tapping it in, and we've known a few of those over the years. So it is a difficult one. The reason I liked it so much to send it to you was this happened to me not that long ago, where a player that I coached sort of individually at Pezzers, their dad told me that their club doesn't do top goal scorer award, and they had bought them a trophy. And then when I saw that, I thought, oh, it's common. This happens, you know. It wasn't just a one-off type thing. Having said all this, the big contradicting thing here for me is I have got one trophy on display at home from my whole playing days. Just one little bit of memorabilia from me playing is a top goal scorer trophy. That's cool. This is what I was most proud of. So make of that what you will, Geoff. And I did used to love a trophy as well.
Well done, Pez.
Thanks. That's what I was getting at.
Proud of you, mate.
Thanks. Yeah, I'll show it to you. Come round.
what of all your mates that did all the running for you?
Yeah, I just
all
used
the
to
assists.
stand up front. I was a bit quick.
Yeah.
Hit it over the top.
What have they got on their mental piece to show for it?
Exactly. But there we are. It's an interesting debate. I've made my opinion clear on it. Don't get so worried about it, and don't feel like your kid's missed out just because they might be top goal scorer and they haven't got the award. If you are a manager that's deciding what awards to give out, don't just think you have to give out top goal scorer because it's tradition and it's always been done. No.
And fair play to that team manager for bucking the trend for the rest of the club.
I think it's brave.
It's a big thing to do, and it probably upset a lot more people than it will.
Yeah, God, I upset so many people, even with managers' player. You've got to pick one. It's like, well, no, I don't. I don't want any of them to think that they're my favourite. When they've all turned up every week, they've all worked really hard for me. Why should I pick one? On what criteria do I pick it? Just because I like them the most? Like, I thought it was a ridiculous one to give out, and I had to explain it to the parents. And to be fair, my parents at the time were quite supportive of my decisions, and I tried to explain it, or to my face anyway, probably not behind my back.
And to be honest, your manager's player of the year should really be the same as the clubman of the year anyway, shouldn't it?
Yeah.
Because if you say this player's clubman of the year or whatever, it should be for...
You have to remember.
Turning up on time, turning up early, putting in the most effort, being supportive of their teammates, making sure that they hang around to take the nets down or put away any equipment, or help carry stuff back to the car if the coach needs help. They should be these things that you go, and that's why they're getting some recognition.
I like the idea of clubman. It just, over the years, became a bit of a joke, really. And I mean, I remember when I played, I was like, please don't get clubman. I got it once. I think I was about 18 and I got clubman, and it was like, oh no, it just means I'm rubbish, but because I'm there every week and, you know, I help put the nets down, I'm getting a little thanks for your effort, but you're still rubbish. That's how it felt, and I didn't want it. So I was aware of that when I was a manager and giving out trophies, even for the younger kids. So like I say, I came up with a different one, and I can't remember off the top of my head what we called it.
I'm terrible because I'm the same now, Pez. I still get an award that sounds a bit like that. I think, God, that just makes me the best loser, does it? That's how ingrained it's been into my culture through.
So do give it some thought if you're a manager or a coach, about your awards. Maybe a moment of the season or something like that. I don't know if you have to give things away, but try and give everyone a little memento for their efforts, and rather than lots of glitzy trophies, just have a fun evening, have some activity, do something they'll remember.
Or get them all a football for the money or something instead, and go and practice at home.
God, I've seen kids in tears at trophy presentation nights because they've not come away with anything. And you know, you've got one kid there with a top goal scorer, player's player, manager's player, and you know, their little memento, and they're walking out with 4 trophies, and some children are not getting any. Anyway, shall we move on?
Yeah, we've got another chapter to do now. Last one was 26, so I've written it down.
Oh, thank you.
Randomise. 90. We haven't got a 90 on the list, so I'll put it down.
Good. 89. 90. Oh, goodness gracious me. I say that every time, don't I? This is a 2-page one. Lots in there. And it is children are like seeds. There we go. Leave it at that. And the opening quote: from tiny seeds grow mighty trees. And that's from Unknown. He's had a few quotes in here.
Yeah.
Mr. or Mrs. Unknown. Okay, I'll crack on with the first paragraph. This is what I'm going to get deep in here. I can feel it coming already. This must be one of my
from the
philosophical moments. Right. Each seed in a packet has its own potential. They will all have their own innate makeup, responding to different external factors. If the seed is given the right care, attention, nurturing and environment, it will grow and flourish on its own. You cannot control the potential, but you can control and influence the environment. The correct soil, pot size, water, fertiliser, temperature and light can all be controlled to protect them from insects and the weather when they start to sprout. Some might thrive in a certain type of soil, some from a certain amount of light or what nutrition they are given. Left alone in nature, some will thrive and survive, and some will be stifled and not grow to their full potential. A plant doesn't compare itself to others, it just grows. And how well it grows depends on the external factors it is subjected to. Put these seeds in a bad environment and they might all die. Only 1 or 2 of those seeds might have had the innate potential to be Chelsea Flower Show prize winners, but they all still need looking after and nurturing every step of the way. See where I'm going here, Geoff?
Yeah.
This is one of my deep... People can start thinking I smoke wacky or something with chapters like this.
We're waiting for the bit where it talks about talking to the plants and playing music to the plants and liking it to the screaming parents from the previous one.
Yeah, I think I'd better move on to the next paragraph. This is the same for your child when it comes to football. You can't control the innate potential your child has, but you can certainly help control most of the external factors they are subjected to. You can protect them from bad influences and subject them to the correct environments. You are the biggest influence on your child's development, bar none, as you are in control of or can change the external factors that influence them. Take responsibility for every area of it. You won't always get it right, that's a given, but if you are mindful of what you are doing and give lots of thought, you will get more right than you do wrong and learn from any mistakes along the way. That's the first 2 paragraphs of many. There's a few takeaways in here. Youth football should be looked back on in later years as a fantastic shared experience that everyone enjoyed. Innate talent is nothing unless it is matched with the correct external factors to help it grow and develop. And there's no closing quote there, even from Mr. and Mrs. Unknown. So yeah, that's one that people really need to read it all for a bit of context, because it's quite good, even if I do say so myself.
Yeah.
Starts off a bit wishy-washy, but there is a reason behind it. I like this bit. Simply handing over your plant for a few hours a week to a gardener is not going to make that big of a positive difference. That's like, obviously, just handing it over to a coach 1 or 2 hours a week. It's not enough. And obviously it goes into a lot more depth. Any thoughts on that, Jeffrey? Bit of a difficult one without reading it all out, but it's a little taster. Don't want to give too much away, do I?
It's good analogies, isn't it? And there's all sorts of different types of plants in the world, and there's all sorts of types of different young people in the world, and some will thrive in different places, and some will thrive in complete different environments, won't they? So, yeah, it'll be a really interesting one to dig down deeper into, Pez. And yeah.
If you put a load of seeds in a glass jar and put the lid on it, they will always just remain seeds.
Yeah.
Cool. Like that. So they have got to be subjected to external factors to grow, and how well they grow depends on what those are and what their innate potential is. It's just a fancy way of saying do the right things, isn't it? And take an interest.
So control the controllables.
There's a chapter called Control the Controllables. There we are. Just buy the book. Just read the book. You've got it, Geoff. You've got a signed copy.
I'm going to do a little number 90 because I want to read the whole chapter later.
Are you going to write that on your hand?
Yeah.
You do that a lot, don't you?
Yeah, I have to.
Cool. Yeah, read that one, mate. It's important, although I think all of it's important myself.
Yeah.
Right, question number 3. I think it's you that ask.
If a player has made it known that they are leaving for a new team at the end of the season and do not turn up for 5 training sessions in a row, possibly training with a new team, but still expect to play on a Sunday, would you still play them? Genuinely interested to hear your thoughts.
Probably not, no. I think you've got to show a commitment to training.
When I read this before we started this podcast, I thought exactly the same thing. And then I started to dig a bit deeper and thought, there'll be so many other factors and there'll be so many other things that you can go, right, I'm going to treat everybody the same. If you're not training, you're not playing. And that'll avoid making a rod for your own back when somebody else tries to do it. And
yeah, it's almost, you can almost split into 2. You can say, well, if any child doesn't turn up for 5 training sessions, would you still play them?
But then you go, actually, have they got parents living in different places, and do they keep going away for the weekends or evenings and in different places at different times?
Okay, well, if it's my child, Geoff, and this kid's playing and my child's not,
Yeah.
I would think it was unfair.
Exactly that. This is why you're trying to avoid making the rod for your own back. But everybody's got different circumstances, and so if you treat everybody exactly the same, then you might find you've got no team to train with your child in the first place, because no one's there to train with, because they've all got different circumstances to your child. So for this example, it might be where you draw the line, because you think they're training with a new team. So
yeah, which is disrespectful to everybody involved, the club, your teammates, everything. I don't think you should expect to.
No.
But it does say possibly, so again, communication, you need to say, look, you've missed 5 training sessions, not to the child, because it's not fair to put them on the spot, but to the parents. Is there any reason why they've missed 5 training sessions? You know, it's really difficult for me to play them ahead of someone that's been to those 5 training sessions. And just beyond, might even say, you know, is it because they've been training with this other team? Because I don't think that's acceptable. You know, do it in a non-confrontational way, but if you're worried about it, then I think you've got every right to ask the question. Because it's going to open up a whole can of worms for you if you start this kid or play this kid instead of someone else who is committed to the training, even if this kid might be your best player, your top goal scorer, whatever it might be. Again, does it say age group? Doesn't say age, the age of the child. So
that's why I quite like this question, because it's kind of left all that out of it, hasn't it, and just gone. It's almost all facts, isn't it? Apart from possibly training with a new team.
I mean, what would you say if you took out the 5 training sessions bit and just say, would you play a player that said they're leaving for a new team at the end of the season? You probably still, you know, you wouldn't put them on the bench just because of that, would you? You'd say, okay, fair enough, that's a shame. Still a big part of this team for the rest of the season, nothing changes, and you just crack on, I guess.
You'd probably be grateful that they're sticking around to see the season out anyway, wouldn't you?
Yeah. There's big life lessons there as well. I mean, if your kid's now leaving a team and then you're already disrespecting them by training with the other team and probably only playing with this team because you can't play for the other team because you're signed on for this one, you're kind of using them.
Yeah, and by not playing them, they'll actually learn what it feels like to not play with their old team, and they might change their mind anyway. So yeah, all good points, Pez.
Yeah, I am loath to say it, but it's a difficult one.
Yeah,
actually,
well,
it's not that difficult.
Both of
I
us
wouldn't
agree,
play, but I'd make sure there was good communication, and as always, be very careful of the child's feelings. It might be that it's a pushy parent that's decided that the grass is greener somewhere else, and this kid doesn't actually want to leave their friends. So be very cautious with it. Don't treat the kid as the enemy or the parents as the enemy. They might have perfectly good reasons why they want to leave at the end of the season, and that's up to them.
Yeah.
But again, and it's been the theme today, good communication. Talk to each other. Say you're upset. You know, might have an attachment to this kid. I mean, imagine if it had been some of the kids that we've coached who you really, really like, and you know what it's like. Suddenly they don't turn up for a while and you have a sneaking suspicion that they're training somewhere else, and you know, it can hurt.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it? It does feel personal.
Well, it's a double-edged sword, Geoff, because to be good at what you do, you need to care about the kids individually, their welfare, their football development and their personal development. But the flip side of that is you then become attached to these kids and you build bonds with these kids because you generally care about them, so that when they do suddenly not turn up ever again, or you get a text saying they're leaving, it really hurts.
So the short answer is no, they shouldn't really play on a Sunday, but the long answer is there might be lots of different other factors.
Yeah.
If you need 11 to play and they're your 11th player and everyone else has to play with 10 because of it, do you still stick with the right thing to do is the right thing to do and teach them a life lesson that...
Yeah, there is a life lesson of you've committed to something.
Yeah.
You can't leave your team in the lurch. You can't abandon them for something better. You know, you've committed, stick it out. In my opinion, if it was my kid, I'd be like, no.
I'm just thinking about the rest of the group as well. Like, if they would, if they would all rather that person played on that Sunday for the rest of that season, then at least everyone knows what's the scenario is and why they've decided to play that player. It's not because they agree with them going and training with a different team. It's because the rest of the team agree that for now that's the best thing to do until you get to that summer transfer window. Pez.
Yeah, it sounds a little bit like the manager knows what they want to do. They just want people to back them up, or us to back them up, say, yeah, shouldn't play. But communicate, get a bit of context, and make your decision based on the child's and the other children's and the team's best interests. Time for one more chapter? Or
If you're happy to.
yeah, quick one.
Quick chapter.
We'll
All right, I'll try and make it a quick one.
Depends how what
You
comes
watch.
out, really.
I'll keep randomising it. I'll keep landing on previous chapters.
Just a quick one.
78. Have we had it? No, we haven't had 78.
Right. Be a nice simple one.
We haven't had any clashes.
Oh, well, we've talked about this one a little bit anyway, so we won't need to go too deep. But just to give you some context to this one, it's 1, 2, 3, 4 pages long. Something I feel strongly about. Chapter 78. Refrain from paying for goals or good performances. And in brackets, sweets, money. Should say etc., shouldn't it? But it doesn't. The opening quote. Motivation is a fire from within. If someone else tries to light that fire under you, chances are it will burn very briefly. That's Stephen R. Covey. Right, a couple of paragraphs then, mate. This one is surprisingly common despite most parents thinking they are the only ones doing it. On the surface, offering a few quid for a goal seems really sweet and innocent, but the knock-on effect can be really detrimental to a child's development and enjoyment. Grandparents are also guilty of this, and occasionally siblings. Paying for goals gives the child the impression that goals are all you are interested in, and often they're right. The thought process for some is that scoring goals is what gets players noticed. Goals also make mum and dad feel proud, and goals can be put on social media. If a child thinks that goals are the most important thing, they will naturally only want to play up the pitch or in attacking positions. This can lead to disappointment and a lack of effort when asked to play in a different position, which is vital to the development and learning. You might be paying a potential world-class defender and possible future England captain to score goals against Winklebury Village Terriers under 9s, that's in brackets, Geoff, giving the child the impression that defending isn't valuable or important.
Winklebury's under 9s must be pretty good.
Yeah. We'll leave it there because we've talked quite a bit.
It's a very similar psychological thing as the top goal scorer award, isn't it? It's
Yeah,
an
so
external motivator for something that should be internal.
And it goes on to say, actually, trying to impact your child's decision making or their performance with external rewards, which can be money, McDonald's, sweets, trophy, player of the match, whatever it is, all these external rewards, whatever affects their decision making can have a negative impact on that player's decision making and development. And it goes quite into depth of why that is. There's a few takeaways that I've bolded out. The joy of scoring and helping the team is reward enough.
Yeah, that's brilliant.
Which should be the same for top goal scorer, really.
It should be obvious as well, but obviously not that obvious.
No.
Say obviously more.
Well, I think all parents, Geoff, want to impact their child and help them, and it's the most obvious thing and the easiest way to have some sort of impact. You could stand in your garden with your kid laying up crosses from the left and the right and helping your kid shoot and going goals so your kid shoots. You could go to all that effort, or you could cut a nice little corner and say, I'll give you a £5 if you score today. Nanny and Grandad are coming to watch. It'd be great if you scored. We'll give you a tenner. Well, it all happens, and it's funny because a lot of parents don't think anybody knows. They think they're the only ones.
I've had that scenario before. and their family came to watch somebody, and Dad is someone that we know very well and we love very much, but he'd basically promised this, that and the other and put pressure on because family come to watch, because they come a long way to come and watch, and it's completely changed the way that player played. They had a terrible game. They actually went and played in a different position, even though we talked about how much I don't like positions that much, but where they started playing was really suiting them for their development needs, and would have had a much better game if they'd have carried on doing what they've been doing rather than listen to Dad in the car on the way over. And he even came up to me and told me afterwards, I told him I need to have a good game. Need him to have a good game because so-and-so's come to watch. So, and then that kid was devastated after the game as well.
Yeah, and that can happen. You know, a kid can score 3 goals one week, maybe when the team's won 10-0 against a poorer side, and they're buzzing, and then the week after they're playing against a really strong team, they've had a great game, didn't score, and they're miserable. All down to a parent trying to impact. And the kid might have had a blinding game, done so much better than they did the week before, and it was easy and they scored goals. Just leave it alone, in my opinion. There's no need. It's not sweet and innocent.
The running theme with everything today is people, I think, have genuine intentions to help, but they actually don't realise how negative those actions are on the development of a child.
Yeah, and I hate it
doesn't
because
fulfil their needs.
It sounds like I'm always having a go, especially about common things like this. There'll be loads of people that do that are listening now, who've never done us any harm, whatever, but it maybe without you even knowing it.
And
so
again,
you need to know it's a possibility.
There will be another side of the coin where someone's done it, and that player, you said about Totti, didn't you?
Yeah, it's actually in this. There's a paragraph in this chapter which mentions Totti.
Oh,
there's
I
some
can
more.
tell you I've read it now then.
Yeah, there's some more takeaways here. Motivation should always be intrinsic, and children have to play for their own reasons and rewards if they are going to fulfil their potential. Next one. You are basically saying, now you've made me happy, here's something to make you happy. Oh, that's quite powerful, isn't it? Which is. It's like, I've come all the way to watch you. I'd like some glory. Oh, you've given me some glory. You've made me happy. Here's a £5 to make you happy. Hopefully that one will sink in. Trust me, just watching them and being there to support them is enough. And the final one. Working hard can be forced, but competing has to come from within. Oh, I like that one too, Geoff. Good chapter. You need to read that. Write that on your hand.
What chapter was it?
It is 78. And then the final quote is one of my own. External sources of motivation can impact the very short term, but the negative effects can last a lifetime.
Yeah, that's
good way to end the podcast.
It's a brilliant quote. And it actually probably has a lot to do with people's mental health further down the line, which is what you mean about the negative effects can last a lifetime. And people's mental health in sports a big buzz thing at the moment, isn't it?
Yeah.
Everyone's talking about it.
And it can affect mental health, and we go into it a bit deeper into the chapter. So
of course it can.
If you want to know more, then obviously get a copy of the book, because it really will help. There'll be bits in there that help everyone. This can't be doubted, or at least open up people's minds to opportunities and possibilities, and to make better choices.
Can we just go back to that first quote? Motivation is a fire from within. If someone else tries to light that fire under you, chances are it will burn very briefly. Stephen R. Covey.
Yeah, so it's a bit like my one at the end. It's short term.
I'm sure I've read something, or you've told me something. I'm going back 10, 12 years ago, probably, Paz, where how is it that you know that fire is burning from somebody from within? What's the first thing that you can notice from possibly a youth football player, or a youth snooker player, or a youth ballet dancer?
When they're still playing.
That's eventually what you'll see, but what's the first thing can you remember what it was?
No, remind me.
It's when a child stops and stares at something and doesn't notice anything else that's going on around them. That's where you know where the fire comes from, that's lit inside them. And that's when you can go, you want to go and give that a try, and encourage them to go and give it a go. And that's normally the thing that is the first key indicator that they've got a fire inside them. Whereas if it's a parent saying, go and do this because I always did it and I always loved it.
And I love football, you'll love football.
Exactly, and then it becomes not about the child's burning desire, but about the parents.
Cool, thanks for those words of wisdom, Geoffrey.
I'm sure they came from you. I'm sure that came from you.
Probably.
A long time ago. You forgot more than I know, haven't you?
Well, I wouldn't go that far, mate. I've just forgotten a lot. Well, the beauty of writing a book now is I can keep reading it, so I remember things now. Should we leave it there, mate?
Yep.
It's been quite a long episode again. I hope everyone's enjoyed it and got something out of it. Again, please get involved. Send us a question so that we can pick the bones out of it and give you some little bit of advice and words of wisdom, and try and help you with certain scenarios and situations that you might be facing or that you're interested in. And again, please subscribe or follow just by clicking the follow or subscribe button on wherever you're listening to this podcast or watching. If it's on YouTube, they are on YouTube. Should probably need to advertise more, Geoff, because we don't get many views on there. And you're the eye candy. I mean, God.
Yeah, you need to get a TikTok account, don't you? Do snippets.
People keep telling me I should do things like that.
I'm sure that'll bring people back for more.
I just try and do a really good job of what we do, and hopefully that'll be enough, but only if people, one, think so, and two, tell other people.
It's a good job one of us is trying to do a really good job, Pez.
Geoff, I need you to bounce off. I couldn't do it on my own, sorry.
I'm the bounciest person you know.
Which reminds me, will you stay around while I do a quick extra time?
I'll go get us a coffee, mate.
Okay, mate, you do that. Right. Thanks for everyone for listening. This episode and the series, as you all know by now, is sponsored by my book, Did You Win, Did You Score? How to Help Your Child Succeed at Football and Life. And it is available on Amazon. Just type in my name, Perry Cocking, and you will find it. And please, never forget, football isn't that important, but children are. And we will see you next time.